the one thing about real estate is it changes. And I've never felt that change is bad. I always look to the positive side and think change is good. You just have to be ready to turn on a dime.
Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Marianne McNally. Based in Salem, Oregon, Marianne entered the real estate industry in 2000 after running a local hair salon. Now more than 20 years into her real estate career, Marianne talks with us about how her involvement with the community is driving her referral business. Also, going through cancer treatment, Marianne shares how she has had to adapt to the pandemic. Now, before getting into the day's featured interview, make sure you follow and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. You can find us on all major podcasting platforms from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and the list goes on. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Click the bell to get notifications when each new episode is uploaded. And lastly, if you or somebody else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, on to the day's featured interview with Marianne McNally out of Salem, Oregon. Just kind of getting started out a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're at in the country again, and how long you've been in real estate?
So my name is Marianne McNally. I live in Salem, Oregon, and that's about an hour south of Portland. And I started in real estate the 1st of June in 2000. So I started out in a decent market, and then of course, went through the downturn of the market, but I survived it. Thank goodness I'm not a sole provider for my family. I have a husband, so we had that to lean on. But I sure got good at short sales and foreclosures and working those. And now this market is a market I don't think any of us have ever seen before. It's like literally insane. Just before we jumped on this call, I had to go run over to a house, snap pictures of CO2 detectors so that we can fund on a property today. And if they don't have those pictures, it wasn't going to fund. I'm probably still sweating. I got to get over there right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's a great industry to be in. I love it. This is my second career. It's not my first career. So yeah, my first career definitely helped launch me into real estate.
Right. And what was that first career, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, my first career was I worked in a salon. So did hair and nails. I was part owner of the salon, and we had that for, from 1990. And then I was involved in it until 2004. So I overlapped a little bit. I wasn't working in the salon since 2000, but I still was part owner in it. And I was Rookie of the Year. At the time, I worked at Prudential Real Estate Professionals, and they had a Rookie of the Year award. And I won that award that first year solely because I worked my sphere from my nail business. And those gals are the ones that launched me into my real estate career. So I've always been forever grateful. Those women have been in my lives for so long, and seeing them on, some of them I saw twice a month, and some of them I only saw every, few months, but we were bonded. And so they had an instant trust in me when I went into real estate. So I was super happy to have them in my life to be able to launch my career.
Right. I mean, what a great place to have a sphere. I mean, if they trust you cutting their hair,
yeah,
they're going to trust, you've definitely built up that trust with them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I also understand you're second generation realtor as well.
Yep.
So
my father was in actually commercial real estate. So he did it from the 60s and into the 70s. And then when we hit that mid 70s downturn into the later 70s, into the 80s, he had his own real estate company. It was called Malarkey Real Estate. That's my maiden name, is Malarkey. And And I know it's a funny last name down. So when I tell people that, they say, that was really your last name? Yep, it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he did commercial real estate for years. I literally grew up in his office. He would pick me up from school and I would go on appointments with him. I would sit in the corner of his office and play with coloring books and my dolls, and loved every minute of it. And we traveled all over showing commercial properties to people, and I would, be a silent little girl over in the corner. So he did that until the early 80s. Well, actually, no, 1979. And then he ended up going to work because of the downturn of that. The commercial real estate market was horrible at the time. So that was when interest rates were 19, 20, right. 21%. And so when I got into real estate, interest rates were 9%. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh my gosh, 1-digit interest rates. That's amazing. Right. Everybody should be buying real estate right now. So he went to work that's what brought us to Salem, is he got a job with the state of Oregon in the real estate division. And he started working on plotting subdivisions. And so he worked there for years and ended up retiring from there.
Right. So, it's really, you've made such a, having the business in town and then having your real estate business, I'd imagine you've made quite a foothold in your local community.
Yes. Yeah, I have. I'm so thankful that I didn't grow up here my entire life. I moved here when I was 14, but my adult life has been in Salem. So I've been able to make a lot of connections with not only just our neighbors and, friends and things like that, but also within our community and volunteering at the schools that our kids were at. Anything I could do to give back to the community, I was involved in Red Cross for a while and helping run the blood drives. So anything to give back to the community, but also that's where you make connections, and that's where you meet people. And it's not a bad thing to say, because you're also doing something good for your community. But if you find somebody there that needs to buy and sell real estate, why would they not want to work with you? Because they know you and now they trust you. Right.
And so, and I mean, like you said, the whole time you're giving back to your community, and you're being involved in your community. You're not this person that, just kind of swoops in, does the deal, and then is gone again. You are making an impact, and these are people that are moving into your community. So you're making them feel comfortable, and, overall, you're helping out your community.
Right. My favorite clients are ones that move here from out of state, because I love to show them around Salem. I love to explain the history of Salem. I love to talk about Oregon and everything there is to do in Oregon that a lot of people don't know about. So it's fun for me to share the knowledge and the excitement that we have here in Salem and in Oregon.
Right. So with all the connections that you've had, I'd imagine a lot of your business comes from the referrals and the type repeat clients. So
yeah.
And you said you like getting the clients that come from out of state. So how do you get those clients?
So I have a designation called a certified residential specialist, and that's through the Residential Real Estate Council, which is an association that is actually worldwide. And it takes some doing to get in and get your CRS designation. You have certain amount of classes that you have to take and hours, but you also have to have a certain production level. They don't just take anybody. So once you match all of their qualifications, then you can get your designation. And really what that is a referral market. So you start creating relationships, but now you're creating it with agents. So I go to the conventions that they have. I go to classes in other cities and other states to meet other agents that possibly might have clients that are moving here. And I also used to, I was the Oregon State president for the Residential Real Estate Council. And then I was also a regional vice president for them, so I did that 2 years in a row. So I had different regions in the country that I took care of. And that gives you an even greater exposure to other agents. And then you kind of become their liaison. Like they'll call you. It may not be that they're in your area, but they're calling and saying, hey, who do you know in Grants Pass that sells real estate that's also a CRS that's good? And so then you give them names. So I'm also a conduit helping people with places, people in Oregon to contact. So I get a lot of referrals from that. I just closed on one on Tuesday. That was a referral from an agent out of state. I get probably 6 to 8 referrals a year off of that. And those are transactions I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have that designation. It costs me $199 a year to keep that designation, and I have to take 2 hours of maintenance, and it's like a no-brainer.
Right.
Why would I not do that to make, $25,000 or $30,000 more a year off of referrals? I will gladly pay a referral fee to any agent that wants to send me a buyer or a seller. I'm happy to pay a referral fee because something is better than nothing. So I don't mind giving something back to them for them to give me something. And then I get I'm sorry to say, but now they're locked into me because now I'm not going to let them out of my sight. I'm going to be waiting for them to resell their house.
Right. And I think that's what I think a lot of times gets lost when people say, oh, I don't want to pay the referral fees, or I don't want to get, look, first of all, that was business you would have never gotten. So you're probably spending that money marketing somewhere else to get, to fill that void. But then also, like you said, those are new people moving into your market that eventually will resell, or they're going to know somebody that's looking to sell. And that's business that you're going to get as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
When it comes, and I really like, being involved in things. I think sometimes people don't get involved in their communities and they don't get involved in the civic organizations. And while, yes, it does take time, that pays off so much in the long run. What would you say to people that are a little bit afraid of, the time commitment of having their full-time job, but then also needing to make some time for those organizations?
Well, somebody has to do it. People aren't stepping up and getting involved in their neighborhood associations or getting involved in other organizations in town that need extra help, and they can't afford to pay because they're a nonprofit, let's say. You have to get involved and you have to give back to make your community better. And if nobody's going to step up and do it, we're going to go down a really dark hole. I always reflect back to when we had our first child, and our Lamaze instructor, who was a client of mine at the salon, said, after we had our child, he was a couple of years old, and she said, so when are you going to have another? I said, I don't know if I can do that again. That was really hard. And she said, Marianne, if good people quit having children, then we're going to be in big trouble. And I'm like, okay, so it's my civic duty to have another child. Okay. We had another child. So I think back to that because we do need to make effort. The good people need to get out there and make a difference. And while, it may not pay off immediately, but you have to go into it with a servant's heart, that you're not going into it with, who can I sell real estate to? Who's the next person that I'm going to, make money off of? That's not what it's about. First, you're going into it to give back, and you need to choose something that's a passion, not something just because it looks good on paper, but it has to be a passion. I also volunteer for a nonprofit out of Portland, which is a breast cancer foundation. It's called Breast Friends. And they help women who are financially not able to pay for either having a mammogram, or they don't have financial means to get an Uber to go to their treatments. And so we arrange rides for them. We help them with meals. We help them with a hat, we have hats and wigs to give to women that can't afford to buy them. But also we have support groups. And so I lead the support group in Salem, and I have breast cancer myself. So I'm very passionate about it, and I'm very passionate about helping women through it and giving them not only support through helping them get to where they need to be, or maybe I go with them to an appointment because they need a second set of ears, but also to give them emotional support on a monthly basis where we all gather. Of course, it's been on Zoom the last year, which we all are really tired of. And we're hoping in June that it's going to be sunny enough that we can just go to a park and like actually see each other, because it's been so long. But that's one thing that I do that gives me, it fills my heart to help others. And I've learned that about myself, is if somebody says I need help, I'm there. That word triggers something in me.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the real estate industry, there's such a high turnover rate and such a high burnout rate. By having those passions and those passion projects and those things that you're doing to kind of offset because you're going to have a bad experience, something's going to happen with a client, or a deal is going to fall through, but to be able to focus your energy on those positive things that you really enjoy, it's going to help offset those, the days where, everything blows up. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's for sure.
So having breast cancer, how's this last year been like? I mean, because there's, the COVID restrictions, that's one thing, but for you specifically, you had to be so much more careful with that. So has this been really how you've done most of your interaction, is through Zoom? Or?
I've done a lot of appointments through Zoom. So like when I get somebody who wants to list their house, if I've never seen their house, I have them take me through either on FaceTime or on Zoom and walk around their house so I can see it. So I can, when I do the market analysis on their house, I have a better understanding of what their house has to offer. I used to always throw people in my car, buyers in my car, and drive them. So I quit doing that. Of course, wearing masks, wearing gloves, always sanitizing my hands, things like that, and keeping socially distant. I've had a very good year. I mean, if you're an agent that is breathing, you should have had a good year, because it's not hard to find a buyer right now. It's just insane. But I have definitely struggled with not having them in my car, because that's where I get a lot of information when you're driving in between houses and you hear what they didn't like about the last house. And then you go, okay, crumple that piece of paper up. We're throwing it away. We're not going to even think about it ever again. We know we don't want that one. Let's move on to the next. So when you're not in the car with them, it gets a little harder to get those connections. I like to have deep connections with my clients. I don't like this surface where they just want you to write an offer and buy them a house. I like, no, we're going to be friends and you're going to love me. So it's just been, obviously it's been the strangest year, but my oncologist, cause I have stage 4 breast cancer. So I'm in chemo still and doing all that. But, my oncologist has been really helpful with giving me the permission to keep working through it, because I said it's not that I have to work. It's I like to work. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting around all day feeling sorry for myself. I want to get out there and be with people who are living and who are alive and having fun and seeing people's faces when they walk through a door and find that perfect house. That's what makes me happy. And so I told her, I said, I can't, with this whole COVID thing, I can't stop. I'll definitely change the way I'm doing things, but I'm not going to totally step back from it at all.
Right. And, you said, absolutely. The market's been absolutely insane. My neighbor sold his house. His house was on the market for 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
It's just insane.
exactly.
And for $100,000 and more than he bought it a year and a half ago. Just absolutely
I know.
insane.
It is.
So, working with these buyers, how do you work with them to, deal with the, trying to think of the best way to
The restrictions
but the restrictions, but because of the so working with these buyers, because of the restrictions and the having to do the conversations this way and not so much in person, how do you get across those points? Like, look, when a house comes on the market that you really want, you got to pull the trigger now. There can't be a lot of back and forth. There's also going to be that disappointment in there might be 15 offers on this place and we're just not going to get it.
Right. It's funny that some people know coming in because they've talked to friends, they've had friends buy and sell houses, they know. And some don't know that the market is insane. I had one couple that is buying, and the first time I met them, we had to stand in line to get into the house. And they had no idea that the market was like this. And so we had that time while standing in line together to get our turn to get into the house to go, this is the way it is. Every open house has a line to get in. So that probably half or 3/4 of the people that are going to view this home are going to be writing offers, and you're competing against 15. I've had one agent that told me I was one of 30 offers. So, and that was not even a very nice part of Salem. It was like, seriously, but it was because it was such a good price. And that, and that's what, some people need. Obviously they need that price point. So some people, it's a learning curve, and they have to, one buyer, the one that we stood in line the first time, they made an offer on a house and they lost out, and they actually ended up having to step back because they literally could not handle, they weren't prepared, and they just needed to regroup and think about it. And now they're coming back at it with a better mindset. Even though I had talked to them all about that part, it just takes people to see it and live it and go through it to understand it. Other people come into it and they totally get it because their best friend just bought a house and they know what they went through. So I don't have to talk to them. And a lot of times what happens is buyers know instantly when they go into a house, they know, they can't think about it. It's like, do you like it or not? Does it check off most of the boxes? Because not every house, it's going to be really hard to find a house that checks most of the boxes. And I try to tell people that up front.
Yeah.
The other side to that is sellers, because sellers, obviously in COVID, freak out when they think there's going to be like 80 people going through my house in a weekend. Yes, there will be. And you're going to want to wash every high touch surface down when you get home, because there's going to be lots of people touching and opening cabinets and doors and things like that. But also on the other hand, they have to think about buying. And I've talked a few people out of selling their house and waiting, because for what they want to buy, it would be better for them to stay where they are than to spend $200,000 more to get what they want, which is only just a little bit more than what they have. So just stay there. So anyway, I try to be very open and honest. And I obviously I would love to have every listing that I get called to, but if I don't feel it's right and I feel any kind of hesitance in them, I will just say it's probably not the right market for you. And the same thing with the buyers. I've had a couple of buyers decide to wait, and they've just said, this probably isn't the market for us. We can't make a decision that fast.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so important to do, because if say you do sell that person's house and they aren't prepared to buy, or then all of a sudden they realize, oh man, I'm out of this house, and now what we just had, I have to pay an extra $200,000 to have. They are not going to be very happy with you.
No.
And that's not going, the reputation and everything. It's
Right.
so easy to build up, or it's so hard to build up a reputation. It's so easy
Right.
to lose one.
Right.
And, you know,
And sometimes what I'll do is I'll take sellers and go show them, okay, if we check every box that you want, here's the house, let's go look at it. And I show it to them and it's 749,000. Do you want to spend that much? No, I don't. Okay, then let's just wait. Let's wait this market out and see what happens, because it's so strange to me, because when we had the last downturn of the market, so the big fail that we had, you would think that when the pandemic hit, we would have had another big fail. But it actually, in Oregon at least, we were considered essential workers. So we got to keep working, where other states, real estate stopped immediately. They weren't doing, inspections weren't being, appraisals weren't being done. Nothing was happening. We were still going strong. And so our market increased in a worldwide pandemic. That is just, it's insane to think about that we're making money and actually, thriving during a worldwide pandemic, which we should be probably not be thriving. And really, we should probably, the first month it was kind of slow, but after everybody kind of got the feel for, okay, here are the guidelines, here's how we show a house, here's what we do. And you told the buyers and you explained to the sellers, and everybody was like, okay, if that's how I have to look at a house, I'll put on a hazmat suit to go look at a house. I mean, whatever it takes, I need a house. Right. But the interest rates were so good, that's what kept everybody going, is the interest rates are amazing.
Right. So, and with being in the industry for as long as you have been and going through several different ups and downs, what would you say to the agents because I've talked to a lot of agents that, maybe they started their careers 2 years ago and they had this, rose colored tint on there thinking, oh, it's so easy. Yeah. I don't have to do anything to sell these houses and the market's great. What would you say to them that eventually, hey, you know what? It's not going to be that easy.
Yeah, that's a great question. We just had the same discussion in our office marketing meeting, because we have a couple of agents in our office. We're a very small boutique company. There's only 5 of us, and 3 of us have been in for a long time. And the other 2 are newer agents. They've never worked in a down market. And so I told them what we need to start thinking about is teaching these 2 gals what it's like to go to do a short sale. And I'm sure it's going to be different than the last time we did short sales, because everything changes, but at least get them up to speed on what we went through back then, and explain to them, okay, here's a short sale, here's a foreclosure, talking to the banks, and then also getting on the title companies pages. So they will send you letters, notices of default for people. And so that's how, back in the day, that's how we got short sales, is by calling these people who were in default and saying, hey, I can help you get out of this, get that money forgiven, and just get you moved on. You're going to take a hit in your credit, but let's take a less hit. Let's not foreclose. Let's try to do a short sale. And so that's what we're working on right now in our office, is learning about short sales and foreclosures for them, because it also helps us, because we haven't done it in a while either. But we need to definitely start teaching these younger agents that this market isn't going to last forever. The one thing about real estate is it changes, and change is not, I've never felt that change is bad. I always look to the positive side and think change is good. You just have to be ready to turn on a dime. And now, okay, here's where we're going to get our business. You have to be able to, as they say, the word pivot is of the year. You have to be able to pivot and go in a different direction and figure out, okay, now how am I going to make money? So I need to become the queen of short sales and foreclosures and go after all that, because these people are going to need help, and they're going to look to us for that knowledge. And so we need to learn about it.
Right, right. And I really like that, being proactive and getting prepared, because because things change so fast, you don't want to be, when all of a sudden things do fall apart, or, all of a sudden there's an influx of the foreclosures. You don't want to be the one on the sidelines trying to get all your paperwork and get everything set up, because you're going to be left behind.
Right. I definitely agree. When the last time the downturn in the market happened, I was on an extended vacation with my family in Europe, and we were watching it on CNN. And I called back home to the gal that I was my office mate, and I'm like, "What in the heck is going on?" And she's like, "Oh my God, Marianne, it's crazy. Things are just falling apart right and left." And I came home probably 2 weeks later to going, "Oh my goodness, I have all these clients going, now what do I do? I have to sell, and I can't even sell it for what I bought it for." So we were all caught off guard, and none of us had been through a market at that point. Most of us at that point, we were newer agents. I'd only been in the market for the real estate for 7-8 years at that point. So it was learned by fire.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you.
I think so many of the things that you mentioned and the tips you gave, I think are so important to not just the newer agents, but agents of all, experience levels.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I really want to thank Marianne for taking the time to join us today, and I really enjoyed our conversation. So once again, if you think you or somebody else on your team has a story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.